All right. Welcome back to the weekly for July 22nd, 2025. It may be summer, but there are no summer doldrums this year. Week after week, we are seeing a ton of big moves in Bitcoin and crypto. So let's get into it. Crypto week has delivered. David, give us the rundown.
It has indeed. So earlier this month, Republican leadership declared that the week of July 14th, last week, was going to be Crypto Week. And I had some misgivings about that bold declaration, but the Republicans delivered. On Thursday, three landmark crypto bills cleared the U.S. House of Representatives, starting with the Genius Act that passed 307 to 122. Clarity Act passed 294 to 134, and the Anti CBDC Surveillance State Act passed 219 to 210. The Genius Act went on to be signed into law by Trump. That is now officially law. The Clarity Act and the Anti CBDC Surveillance State Act still need a lot of work to be done if they ever get passed to begin with. But just having the Genius Act is big news. This is the Stablecoin Act, and the implications for this are probably far reaching because despite it being a domestic law for America, experts believe, and pretty much anyone with common sense believes, that because of compliance requirements, such as the one-to-one reserve banking, the one-to-one reserve backing, the audits, and the consumer protections, this will be become a kind of de facto international standards. Non-U.S. stablecoin issuers, first, they're going to want to issue in dollars. And second, they're going to want access to U.S. markets. So they will likely comply with the Genius Act. And so you have this kind of suddenly new international standard. Very, very big news in that regard. And probably one of the catalysts that kicked off Ethereum's great run. But we'll have more on that later.
Yeah, so I think we just need to note here that the both the Genius and the Clarity Act passed with bipartisan support. So Genius 307 to 122, meaning many Democrats voted yes for this, and Clarity was 294 to 134. So again, bipartisan support. That's important because it signals strength. It signals that this isn't just like a one-sided issue. This is legislation that's not going to be contested in the future.
That's correct. I would also you have to be careful though with the Senate that's in the House. I think the Senate is a lot closer, and it seems like Clarity and the anti CBTC will have a much tougher time being passed, but we'll see.
All right. So Crypto Week delivered, but there was another story that kind of got buried this week, which is the this executive order, or a rumor of an executive order this was reported by the Financial Times, and the executive order is rumored to be that Bitcoin, crypto, gold, and private equity will be allowed to be put in your 401k plan in the US. So if that actually happens, I think it's pretty massive, and I believe this is sort of a part of an orchestrated plan by the U.S. administration to just like pump assets. So I'm calling it pump assets season. So you've got this, you've got the big beautiful bill, which puts a lot of like it's not money printing exactly, but kind of uh, increases the deficit. Um, the 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 plan to for for what's it called? Austerity was thrown in the trash after about 2 seconds of like the markets crashing and Trump tacoed, and it's yeah we're just straight back to pump all the assets, and this is just like another piece of that. So if you've got assets, you can use them in your retirement plan. Or you contribute, these assets can now be part of your retirement plan, which like carries certain tax benefits. And so that's just going to lead to more asset purchases.
Yeah. And as I pointed out, if this does become a reality, obviously the crypto component will most likely benefit Bitcoin by far, um, in a way. But then you would also imagine Ethereum would benefit the second most from it. And if that's the case, then you'd expect Ethereum to benefit a lot more from it than Bitcoin because of the smaller market cap.
Yes, which leads us, I think, to our next segment here on Bitcoin dominance.
Yeah.
So,
So I've been calling for Bitcoin dominance to rise more higher than this, and so this makes me very wrong thus far. Bitcoin dominance has been down only for about a month. Um, about a month ago, it topped around 66%. It touched 66%, but since then it's been a straight line down, and we're as of right now we're sitting around 60.3%, and this is less than 4 weeks. So a precipitous fall in Bitcoin dominance. This hasn't resulted in the price of Bitcoin going down very much, though, if at all. Instead, what you've seen is a dispersion. Um, Money is flowing into other parts of the crypto space. So altcoin season, if you will,
yeah, and
is starting.
yeah, the entire market cap of the entire crypto space tapped $4 trillion for the first time. It's a little off that now, but yeah, I think that's points to what you're saying, David. The price of Bitcoin is it's come off a little bit of from its all-time high of 123, but it's still like 117, 116 right now, and you're just getting a lot more money flowing into not Bitcoin.
Yeah. Um, and we'll talk about this in a second where it's going. But the altcoin season has I would say started about 4 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago, and here we are now. Um, the question remains how much of an alt season this is. Is this going to be a prolonged alt season, or is it going to be short lived? Graham is showing right now that the alt season index, the indicator for this, is pretty neutral right now in terms of how much of an alt season this is, and other indicators that I've seen also show this. It's we're at a kind of a deciding point whether this alt season is going to kind of finish or we're going to start to see it ramp up and really get going.
Yeah, well, certainly we've seen the alt season indicator number rise over the last 3 weeks. So this other chart here from CoinMarketCap is showing that since the start of July, it was yeah, in the 20-30 range. Now it's 56. So it's gone up a lot. It's not full on alt season as defined by these indexes, where it has to go all the way up into the red here to be full on alt season. But interesting that a move from like call it to 20-30 to 50 has resulted in so many altcoins pumping massively.
Mm, definitely. Um, it reminds me thus far of some of the so-called alt seasons we had in 2024, where you got you got like a month, maybe 6 weeks out of it before it calmed down again. You remember when the Dino coins pumped last year, or when they had
Yep.
that little mini AI season, which I think lasted about 2 months. So It'll be. I'm waiting to see where this takes us.
Yeah. And one other data point on the, I guess, rotation out of Bitcoin, you could call it. Normally, Korea has a Bitcoin, a premium on Bitcoin called the kimchi premium, but that has actually reversed. So there's a kimchi discount now. So like it's Bitcoin in Korea is 2% less than it is in the rest of the world, the price of it. So I think this is kind of an indicator that people are in Korea are rotating out of Bitcoin and into altcoins.
Hmm. And I would say that's a good sign, right? That's what you want to see. And this kind of follows the standard pattern for the last 2 or 3 cycles, which is Bitcoin runs, it kind of takes a breath, people take profits from Bitcoin, they go down into the the other larger altcoins, those run, those take a breath, and then you see this kind of waterfall effect where you go from the biggest market caps all the way down to the lowest market caps, and that's the normal flow. That didn't really happen very much last year, and we've talked about that a lot on this and token narratives. The idea being that ETFs and other and institutions are not really going to take profits out of Bitcoin and put them into lower cap coins. But the fact that if you're seeing retail in Korea doing this, taking profits on Bitcoin and then presumably putting it into lower market cap coins, this would be a good indicator that we could have a tried and true real alt season on our hands. So
Yeah.
Ethereum,
Yeah. For now, it's Ethereum has, as in previous alt season cycles, has been the leader, the first mover.
that's right. Ethereum, which has been a loser for 18 months or more, is starting to finally see some life, much to the chagrin of Graham and even myself. So, how real is this? Well, you've seen a massive ETH accumulation from corporates and ETFs. They're buying lots of ETH, and supposedly this is leading to supply tightness and high demand. I will point out that on Steady Lads with Jordy Alexander just a couple days ago, they talked about just this thing of whether there's a supply tightness in ETH, and they all laughed about it because it's a big joke that this kind of thing actually doesn't exist. There's so much ETH in the world that this is probably not a real thing in terms of being having a tight supply. But yeah, maybe could be the case. Institutions are buying ETH. So major financial players are could be pivoting from Bitcoin to ETH, and they're betting on its utility and growth, and probably higher multiple return, because Bitcoin is much larger than Ethereum. This could also be who the marginal buyer is, and not even directly buying it through the ETFs. They could actually be doing something like that. I mean, Robinhood, was it last week, 2 weeks ago? They they announced that they're going to have an Ethereum L2. This is all kind of news that kind of builds on itself. And then finally, in the ETF land, for 2023 and 2024, we saw Bitcoin massively outperform Ethereum in the spot ETFs. Well, recently, the ETH ETFs have been outperforming Bitcoin in daily inflows. This is a significant change, and it could show a shift in institutional sentiment about uh, where they want to put money in the future. And if this is a real shift in their buying, it's not going to be short lived, right? They're not going they don't do day trading or the short term trading. This will be a more of a long term shift in their strategy. So something really important to pay attention to is to see if these ETF inflows continue at this pace. The other thing though is like 2023, at least at first in the spot Bitcoin ETFs. Most of the inflows were not institutional. They were basically kind of I don't know, smart retail, something like that, and the institutions didn't come in until later. I don't know if this is that. This could be also be the same kind of thing. Who knows? Got to wait and see.
All right. So Ethereum has led the altcoin outperformance over the last several weeks. Notably, the next big L1, Solana, was lagging for quite a while, but finally, Solana seems to have caught a bid, up 15.5% over the last 7 days. Um, it's trading around $200 a coin, and it recently just broke the $100 billion threshold. Solana is valued, I think, at about a third or a quarter of the fully diluted valuation of Ethereum. So
A third.
uh, a third, yeah. So it's finally catching up. And then the other big one, which everyone loves, is Ripple.
Oh gosh, XRP. We've talked about it a lot, Graham. You and I. Unfortunately, I talk about it and then I never buy. What is wrong with me? Anyway, XRP, which has also been trailing ETH, like Solana has been trailing ETH, ended the week as a top performer. It went up around 27% in USD terms from $2.71 to around $3.45, reaching a new all time high. It's since come off its all time high a little bit, but it's the chart looks great, and some of the best traders some of the best traders that I personally think are the best traders on crypto Twitter, they also think that XRP still looks amazing.
Yeah. All
Are
right.
you? Are you? It looked like you were doing some internal calculations there.
Exactly. Yeah, I missed the XRP train, but I'm a man of principles. I don't invest in hot garbage. So
That is BS. I know what some of the things you've invested in.
let's talk about meme coins for a minute because they are also outperforming. So if you look at the CoinGecko's meme coin category, it consists of about 5,000 meme coins, and it's the entire that basket of coins is up 26% on the week.
That's crazy.
You got some very interesting statistics here. 4chan themed memes pumped in May. Anyway, if you want to go down the meme coin rabbit hole, there's lots of meme coins are pumping too. That's it. All right, so we got
Yeah.
a lot of different things pumping as Bitcoin dominance has fallen off. But let's take it back to the Bitcoin realm here for a moment, because I want to talk about the latest big Bitcoin treasury company, Bitcoin corporate treasury company, and this is the Bitcoin Standard Treasury Company, BSTR, and it's going to become a publicly traded company through a merger with a special purpose acquisition company called Cantor Equity Partners, and this was announced late last week. So if this deal actually goes through, BSTR, the Bitcoin Standard Treasury Company, will hold around 30,000 Bitcoin on its balance sheet, which would make it the fourth largest public corporate Bitcoin treasury globally. Now, what's interesting about this is that what I'm starting to see here. Okay, so and this is backed by Adam Back, right? The Bitcoin OG, founder of Blockstream. And what is actually happened here, it seems, is that Adam Back and Blockstream have contributed around like a large percentage of this Bitcoin to the balance sheet of this new company. Now, what that means is it's effectively it's a vehicle for Adam Back and his company Bitcoin billionaires to sort of get liquidity on their Bitcoin without actually having to sell them. So they put the Bitcoin in this company, they get some shares, and then they can use those shares as collateral for loans. They never have to sell their Bitcoin and pay taxes on it. Instead, they get liquidity. And I think this is actually for a lot of these Bitcoin corporate treasury companies, that's actually what's happening. I think David, you mentioned the the 21 shares one was kind of it was SoftBank's Bitcoin that's put
So
in
it
there,
was
right?
a SoftBank, Tether, and Stripe, but I think it was it was Tether and maybe SoftBank's Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing about this though is so yeah, I think you're 100% right. These individuals get liquidity from their Bitcoin without having to sell, but then they also get to play this game. They get to play this game that everyone wants to be a part of now, which is you get to basically extract money from retail. So from retail attention, you get to extract their money and take it for your own.
All right, that's dark.
It is
So,
dark. Speaking of dark, speaking
yeah,
of dark,
speaking of dark, yeah,
strategy.
strategy.
So the company formerly known as MicroStrategy is has filed for an IPO of 5 million shares of its quote variable rate Series A perpetual stretch preferred stock STRC stock, whatever that means, at $100 par value per share, and it's aiming to raise approximately 500 million before expenses. The net proceeds from the offering are intended for general corporate purposes, including acquiring additional units of Bitcoin and providing working capital. This is Strategy's fourth preferred stock offering, and it's designed, of course, to fund the Bitcoin treasury strategy. I know we mentioned this before we uh, started the live stream, but I haven't gotten into this yet. I haven't gotten into the details, and I just don't even know what this means. I don't know what this means and how, why do it. It just seems like some kind of voodoo magic. But I mean, I'll get into it in a bit. It
Yeah.
just
Well,
something seems off.
they've got another. It seems that they've got another way to get $500 million to buy more Bitcoin. That's what it seems like. So for the fourth preferred stock offering.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it
Great.
seems bullish for Bitcoin at least in the short term.
Yeah.
And then let's just move on here. There's another one, Sequan Communication, a French company. They have acquired another 1,264 BTC for 100 million, basically doubling their holdings. And this is a French chip maker, moving up the rankings in the Bitcoin corporate treasury. And speaking of those rankings, we've got 64 public firms now holding Bitcoin on their treasury, and the total they hold is over $100 billion in Bitcoin. So this trend is massive. Anything
Oh
else to
man.
say on this, David, before we move to our last topic for the day?
No, I mean, I would just say I really enjoyed Jordy Alexander's kind of interpretation of the Bitcoin Treasury corporate game, which is basically that it's an attention game, and it it because you have these two components. You have the stock price, and you have the amount of Bitcoin that you're holding. It allows, as long as there's attention on the stock, whether people are selling the stock or buying the stock, it doesn't actually matter, because it allows the company to either sell Bitcoin to buy stock or sell stock to buy Bitcoin. The most important thing is that there's attention on it, and that there's trading on the stock. And Either way, the stock benefits, and
Yeah.
basically it gets to harvest retail attention, basically.
Yeah. So actually, one other point to add to that, which I've heard mentioned by a few people, is like you could argue that this whole Bitcoin corporate treasury meta is, how to put it, it's okay. So normally in crypto, right? You've got Bitcoin goes up, people get frisky, try to figure out ways to like make money in crypto, right? And you've got like the ICO boom, the NFTs, whatever, right? A lot of shady people come in and just like figure out ways to extract money, and it all kind of is net negative to Bitcoin. Like it's less attention on Bitcoin, less people buying into Bitcoin, more money just going into like grifters' hands. Now, I'm not saying that there's less grifters here, but at least from a Bitcoiner's perspective, the grifting is grifting into Bitcoin. So for the short term at least, it's probably
Uh,
positive, more positive for the price of Bitcoin.
yeah, I mean there's also interesting. I was reading some interesting posts on what the price impact for Bitcoin is if you buy it like on an exchange or in the open market versus through these Bitcoin treasury companies. And apparently, I'm not convinced that this is true, but apparently the price impact is a bit lower if you buy it through if these companies buy it, right? As opposed to if individuals or even if you buy it through the spot Bitcoin ETFs, it has a bigger price impact than if you get it through these treasury companies. So I mean, it could also be the case that they it's not helpful in that way either. So I don't know. Whatever it is, it's something new, Graham. This cycle, and
Yeah.
uh, I honestly am just going to be waiting for it to blow up. I think that's the consensus view is that somehow this is everyone kind of has a feeling that this is not this is going to end. The game is going to end. The musical chairs are gonna the song's gonna end. But
Yeah.
I haven't really heard anyone talk about how they think it's gonna end or have a good theory on that. But
Yeah. Or
um,
who's going to go to jail this time?
who's gonna go to jail? It's a good way of
All
putting
right.
it.
let's let's close it off this week with a kind of a fun story, a gossipy story. So we've talked on this show a few times about El Salvador, of course, being the Bitcoin nation, and then they took this money from the International Monetary Fund, a credit facility of $1.4 billion. And one of the conditions of the credit facility was that they have to sort of lay off the Bitcoin rhetoric, stop buying Bitcoin, kind of separate themselves from Bitcoin. So yeah, the IMF loves to put on these kinds of restrictions. And but over the last several months, the president Bukele has been claiming that he's still buying. So like in March, he tweeted, "No, it's not stopping. If it didn't stop, if it didn't stop when the world ostracized us and most quote Bitcoiners abandoned us, it won't stop now and it won't stop in the future." So that was what he said in March. Now, there was a report released just a few days ago from the IMF. It's sort of its compliance report where they're checking if El Salvador is fulfilling its obligations to get that $1.4 billion line of credit to keep it going. And in a footnote in that report, it says, quote, increases in Bitcoin holdings in the Strategic Bitcoin Reserve Fund reflect the consolidation of Bitcoin across various government owned wallets. In other words, they haven't been buying Bitcoin, they've just been moving it around. So I read this as basically the IMF saying that Bukele is lying when he claims to be buying more Bitcoin for El Salvador. I don't know if you have any thoughts on this one, David.
Yeah, I think it's quite funny. either way, right? Like, so Bukele's trying to be like, yeah, see, I don't really care what the IMF says. They're not going to do anything. And the IMF is like, well, it doesn't really matter. You can posture all you want. You're not, you're not breaking our rules anyway. So
Exactly.
it's right. Like either way, it's humorous.
Yeah.
So I personally, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the IMF, but I think the funnier situation would be if they're right, and Bukele is actually just kind of moving Bitcoin around to look cool, which,
Yeah.
which would be very
Exactly.
funny. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's it for today. Don't forget to sign up to at bitcoin.com/newsletters for David's weekly newsletter, where you'll get his candid thoughts on the biggest news of the week, including tons of links for further reading if you want to dive in. It's a 5 minute read. It's completely free and it's delivered to your email inbox every Friday. Go sign up right now. That's it for this week. Thank you, David, and thanks everyone for listening. We're out.
See you, Graham.